Hey guys, you've jumped onto a pretty cool platform. We're going to start today chatting with pastors around our nation, around Australia, and hopefully the goal is we're going to inspire pastors, inspire people in their journey, but also through sharing struggles, sharing the ups and downs. There'll be some comfort in that, and also the inspiration to keep going. And so, yes, I want to welcome a couple of the brothers, a couple of friends from around the nation, starting up from the south, the Port Adelaide fan, Josh.
Don't even.
Josh Greenwood.
Hello. Are we on? Are we on, James?
Right.
We're working.
Yeah.
We're working good.
No, move closer. Josh Greenwood from Influencers, amazing church. We've also go from up in the Sunshine Coast. Both of these brothers are up there, but representing churches that are spread beyond even the Sunshine Coast. But let's go with Jonathan Goulot, who is Suncoast Church.
Hello.
There. Yes. And then last but not least, Dustin Bell, who is the lead pastor of Calvary, which is in multiple locations around Queensland.
The world.
Queensland.
The world.
Queensland, the world, South Africa. We're all global now. We're all
Right.
online, right? So a global audience. Nice to be with you, gentlemen.
So good. Okay, so just to start us off, I do want to ask a couple of important questions that I'll ask you all to answer. First question I'm going to go with is one of my favorite questions to ask people is actually, who was your first Hollywood crush? First Hollywood crush, Josh Greenwood. Tell us about it.
Yep. It was one of the girls off Hanson, and then I realised she was a guy. And I was like, oh no. So since then, I've just tried to avoid Hollywood crushes. Now, probably Alicia Silverstone was definitely up there.
Oh my gosh, Alicia Silverstone.
For sure. And the one that did that dance movie, Honey.
Jessica Alba.
They're the ones. They're the three. They're my three.
But really, after the first one, the concrete was kind of set, and that really was the rest of your life.
It really was. Dustin Bell, what was your who was your first Hollywood crush?
Really, look no further than Claire Danes, Romeo and Juliet.
No.
Amazing. The scene with the angel wings, it's game over. I was 11 or 12. Emotions ran high. Sparks flew.
Oh, they ran high.
Yeah.
You know what? Have you seen what's the latest Netflix thing she was in? Homeland. Have you seen her in Homeland?
Oh, yeah. No, she's changed. I'm a married man now. I've moved on.
Yeah. I'm just saying she's definitely different. Anyways, so Jonathan Goulot, favorite your Hollywood crush. Who was that?
Sarah Michelle Gellar from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Hey.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happened to her?
Got married.
Stabbed in the heart, and got exposed to light. And
that could. Well, she wasn't a vampire in it, bro. Come on, man.
Yeah, she slayed them.
Slayer.
yeah, wasn't allowed to watch it.
Oh.
Neither. Added to the appeal.
Yeah.
Forbidden fruit.
Yes, it must be tasted. Okay.
Who was yours? James Murray.
I had two. My first one was definitely Winnie Cooper, The Wonder Years.
Yeah.
Why did you laugh so deep on that? She was amazing.
Because I was about to say, you're showing your age, mate. Because wasn't that produced in the 70s?
It was. Thank you very much. No, it was based
in these young pups, James.
and then Jessica Simpson. See, no laughing now, are you, Jono? Yeah, that's right. Anyway, okay, so just to lighten the mood, one more question. You ready for this? Theme song. If you had a theme song, that would be the theme song for your life. This would be, you're entering into a boxing ring. This is the song that's playing. You wake up in the morning. If you could have a band in your room that would play this song to inspire your day, what would it be?
Blur Song 2.
Oh, yeah. That'll wake you up.
That'll get you going.
That is. I like it. Yes. Can you give us a little bit?
Bum, 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 bum. There you go.
What you need. I'm motivated already.
You're ready to go.
That sounded like SpongeBob SquarePants introduction. What was that? All right, Dusty, your theme song.
It has to be Mockingbird from Dumb and Dumber. The scene with the band.
Yeah.
How can you not be motivated?
Very much. I like it. Jonathan Gullo, theme song.
Bittersweet Symphony from the Verve.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
James,
I was going to go with, I've got two. Definitely one of the original one would be Here Comes the Boom, POD.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because that just gets you pumped. And then that Don't Stop Me Now song by Queen. Don't stop me now. You know what I'm saying?
Just a bit higher. Sing it a bit higher.
Stop me now. I'll auto-tune it later.
did you watch the movie?
Of course.
Our family never listened to Queen because, like Josh's family, we weren't exposed to such,
The world.
the world. But the movie's amazing. I was like, I didn't know how many great songs Queen wrote.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal. I went and saw Queen live like a couple of weeks ago, or before COVID. I'm serious.
Wow.
Yeah, Adam Lambert. It was amazing.
How many people were there?
Oh, it would have been. I was at ANZ Stadium, so it'd be 80,000.
Wow.
Christian figure?
Correct. What? Christian figure? What do you mean? Adam Lambert?
No. How many people are at the stadium?
Oh, no, 80,000. 80,000. Yeah, totally.
I was asking for the Christian figure.
Oh, yes.
Like the amount.
No. It's about 550,000.
Wow.
Good.
Yeah.
That's Dustin's Facebook crowd now that we're doing online church.
That's all of our Facebook crowds.
It's all. Dude, I love it. All right, boys. So, do want to chat around some stuff that I think everyone faces as leaders, and especially as I would still consider ourselves young leaders in many ways, both in definitely age and experience. As although we've been around a long time, youth ministry, we're all pretty new to the lead pastor role in our churches, and so I wanted to kind of unpackage that a little bit from your own personal experiences to see how you've navigated certain things, the ups and downs, ins and outs of, senior leadership of a church. And so I guess the first thing I want to ask of you guys, and I'll ask in just random order here, but what's been we'll start with the big one. What's been your biggest challenge? We'll come to the COVID-19 thing in a second, but what's been your biggest challenge to navigate as a leader since taking on the church? I'm going to start with Jonathan Gullo.
Hands down, my biggest challenge has been myself. And sure, there's a lot of challenges that will be similar to all of us in terms of transitioning churches or starting churches and people and culture. But for me, if we're talking honestly, I think just going through the processes of self-doubt and I really think about this because I know you sent some of these questions to us before this, and knowing kind of everyone part about all our journeys here, I think I came out of youth and young adult ministry and all those things, and had kicked some goals, whatever that means. So you kind of have a bit of confidence, and then I found taking on the role of a pastor of a church, it's almost like it counted for naught in many ways, and so I think going through those processes of learning to trust God on a whole nother level that I hadn't learned before has not been a quick journey for me, and has definitely been painful in coming to terms with where I'm insecure and where I get really fearful about things. And I'm so grateful for God's grace and being patient with me in that journey. So that's the short, honest answer.
So tell me this then, man, on that insecurities, how have you navigated the insecurities?
Still navigating them. I think one of the things I think I've learned through it is it's not about always getting rid of them. It's learning to make sure they don't rule you. And I think as long as we're human beings, we're going to have vulnerabilities, and we're going to have, you've probably got things that you're vulnerable in that might be different to mine. And I won't always have them necessarily completely abated from my life, but they don't have to rule me or own me. And so I think learning that process has been super huge, and how to submit my insecurities to my identity in Jesus, and to not let my role or my job or my successes or failures get to my head or get to my heart. So I'm learning to walk with a limp, if that makes sense. I think whether the Apostle Paul, who said, he pleaded with the Lord 3 times to have the thorn on his side taken out, and Jesus, like, my grace is enough for you. And I think me learning for that in my own areas is just, and the more I learn that, the more I figure God's really, really good, and I like it.
So good, man. That's amazing. I love that. Josh Greenwood, what have you found, man? Like, you've been leading the church for how long now, as the lead pastor of Influencers in Adelaide? Was that been a couple of years?
Yeah, I've been doing it for maybe 6 years. 6 years, unofficially 6.5, officially 4.5. That journey you go on. But everything Gulo's saying too, it's I guess you're in this age where you step into a leadership role like we do in your early 30s, and you feel the pressure of, you've got to have the answers. You've got to know the direction of the church. You've got to hear from God. You've got to get it right. You now playing a senior role in board meetings and staff hirings and the direction of the church and the timing. And we've not been down this path before. And the challenge that we've got is the challenge to mentor and disciple guys that are coming through. But that doesn't mean we've always been mentored and discipled in how to do this too. So you're doing some by gut, some by copying others, some by just feeling what the Spirit's saying, and it's trying to get the timing of everything right, trying to, how fast, how slow do I go now? Do I look to a team? Do I back my own gut and leadership instinct? And there isn't an answer. It's you're going to we get some things right and get some things wrong. And I think, I know stepping into a church like what was then Paradise and Influencers Church, it's a church that's been around for so long and has been such a, it's a pillar church in the nation, and you've got to both really honor what it was, honor what it is, and also sense the Spirit for where you're going. There's a tension. And you're leading guys. Like, I stepped into the role at 38 now, 39 this year. So what's that? 32. And you're leading guys 30 years older than you, 20 years older in the ministry experience, and it was right, but you've also got to be right about what you're doing and not be right at the same time. These tensions and balances, and how fast do you go, and the feeling of everything has to be done now, but it doesn't all have to be done now. But sometimes it has to be done now. So which is the right one? And again, you can't read a book on this stuff and just go, that's how we do it. The Spirit of God's so kind, and people are so gracious, and He's put in us what we need for the moment. But I think for most of us, we don't end up looking for this in the way it always happens. And then God does it how He does it. And we've just got to respond and react. And I don't know. I think over time, I'm trying to be a bit more gracious to myself, because you beat yourself up, you question every little thing. And over time, you just start to go, well, we've got a long time doing this, and it doesn't have to all be there now. And just to be honest, I'm trying to learn to walk slower, notice people a bit more, back myself on the big decisions, but get more people, the right voices on the right decisions. I don't know what's been challenging, flipping everything. And you learn your graces, getting closer to 40, and you feel like you start to learn who you are, but that comes with a whole bunch of other things. So, and one of the biggest ones, I'll finish with this, is when people go. And it doesn't matter if it's a staff member or a person, but especially staff. And that's how this happens, right? That's life. Mm-hmm. But it hurts. And even if you just go, I can see God in that, still hurts.
Yeah.
And being able to walk through that, and at the end of the day, it's not leaving you. They're just following what God's got, or maybe sometimes they're just, I don't know, they're leaving. But you still wear it and you still question it. I don't know. It's the best thing in the world, but it's difficult, and by God's grace, like Jono said, God's grace, that's the only way.
Yeah, amazing.
It's awesome.
But plant a church. I think it's actually interesting, before I jump to Dustin on this one as well, is that when Paul writes his letters, New Testament letters, when he writes to Timothy and Titus, it's amazing how he always says grace and peace to Corinth. He says grace and peace to church in Galatia. He says everything, but only in the letters to Timothy and Titus does he say grace, mercy, and peace. As if to say, like, hey, leaders, you need mercy. In other words, you need like just mercy for yourself, because you're going to make decisions. You're going to have some difficult moments, and there's grace and peace for you. But hey, there's also mercy, because you're not going to nail it. And I think that's really big. So moving on to you, Dustin, tell us about, I guess, your struggle, your journey, the things you've challenged with since taking on Calvary.
We took on Calvary. We had been on team in Calvary long term. So that really helped. We were in South Africa. We had packed up and moved everything to South Africa to go and be in South Africa for the next decade of our life.
Yeah.
Kind of a year into that, when we got called to come back to Australia and lead. So it certainly wasn't on our radar. It wasn't something we were anticipating at all. In God's grace, we had already served on key team in our 3 biggest campuses in our church. So we were known in our that probably represents 80% of our church. So that really helped. But the biggest thing that has been difficult for me would be decision making. I think, especially if you've served on team, and most people have served on a team somewhere or in some context before they lead, it's a different skill set. There's a ministry skill set and there's a leadership skill set. And we assume because I can preach, because I can pray, because I can minister, therefore I can lead. So the pressure for me is not writing more sermons or ministering more. We all know how to minister. The pressure is leading. And when I took on the role, someone said to me, you basically just get paid to make decisions now. And I was like, no, I get paid to preach. Truth is, leadership is not preaching, that's ministry.
Wow.
So decision-making would be the biggest thing. And I think what Josh said has been really true for me, getting more voices, getting the right voices. I find, obviously, there's more pressure. When you're leading, you feel the pressure more because your decisions carry a lot more weight and there's a lot more ramifications to your decisions. So you want to get it right. I felt like on multiple times in my first year that I was trying to land an airplane on the tiniest air strip or runway every week. There was something that I had to land, and you don't always get it right. I've found that my tendency under pressure is to go into self-sympathy. You feel sorry for yourself, and that just doesn't help anyone. So the challenge has been to think clearly, think objectively, and get the right voices and the right opinions so that I can actually make a decision that's in the best interest of the organization instead of just feeling sorry for myself. I think sometimes as well, we think we're all on our own and everyone is around and all they want to do is critique our decision. In actual fact, there's a lot of people who, if you ask them, are more than happy to help provide advice and wisdom on the decision. And so one of the biggest things that's just been a grace for me is just the good people that were in our church and have actually had amazing wisdom in this season. And thank God put them there, and I had the humility to ask them. I think sometimes we think we have to be brilliant at everything. You don't. I've just watched, there's a great series which Jono will laugh at me, as will Josh, because I'm an old school Australian cricket fan.
Right.
All these guys, all their NBA, whatever. There is a great series on Amazon Prime called The Test. I was telling Jono about it, and he told me that he'll watch it, but he won't.
I will.
Josh, have you watched it?
If you watch The Last Dance, I'll watch whatever that one you said.
The greatest thing that's ever come out.
No, I will watch The Last
Test
Dance.
great.
I just haven't had a chance yet because I'm living at my mother-in-law's house and I'm busy watching The Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, Jesus. Do what you can, Lord. Yes. Go for it.
Justin Langer, the coach of the Australian cricket team, he's got this quote where he says, I've never been to Harvard, but I've hired a lot of people who have. And I thought, that's just smart. And so there's a lot of people in our church who know a lot more than me. And getting those people into the conversation has been invaluable.
Wow.
Because then you can make a decision and you back yourself a lot more because you know this is not just me. I've run it by some people who actually know stuff.
Yep.
And it gives you that extra 10% of confidence.
It's awesome, man.
That's so good, bro. Amazing. So I think the biggest one as well is that, I even had this, planning our church is our 6th year. of running C3 Home. And I think one of the biggest things is having to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's a challenge because obviously this is the beautiful part about our friendships. We've all done youth ministry together for a long time. And it's actually kind of scary how long we've been doing it together, right? Mm-hmm. Like the relationships we've had there. And you look back and you look at, like, man, I've been looking at youth stuff we did in early 2000 and then mid 2000, things like that. Like, feels like it was last week, but it was a long time ago. And we were all youth pastors at one stage, and or young adult pastors, and you have to reinvent yourself as a senior leader. Okay. And really trying to balance, okay, this is who I am, but also the metamorphosis of here's who I need to be now, or who's who God wants to make me now. Mm-hmm. And I actually found that it's a bit of a challenge because you can't be a youth pastor anymore, no, leading a church. But in saying that, I think the hardest struggle was actually going, well, in the transition, don't let go of who you are. Okay. Don't let go of the fun, brilliant leader that you were as a youth pastor, which you guys all were as well. And just letting those two amalgamate into a healthy, I'm leading a church, I'm having fun, I've still got that youthfulness, which I think we all had the great experience of, but now I'm also got that robustness now. It's a bit of a different strength that I have to adapt and learn into. Mm-hmm. I found that was actually pretty hard, and learning how to navigate that and go through those challenges.
What's been helpful for you? Like, what's helped you to go through those developmental stages?
Yeah, I honestly, my times, like I tell you what, I've never spent more time with God than when I became a senior pastor. And I think we can all attest to that. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, like I need to. And what God's really challenging me on is just that identity in Christ, my identity with God. Galatians has always been a big go-to for me, where Paul says, basically Paul, an apostle sent by God, from God, not by man, not by people, like God wanted me here. And so having that back yourself mentality and having to navigate that has been really helpful. But then also just being me. I think I've had to tell myself a lot of times, like, just be you, man. Like, you don't need to change yourself that much. Like, there wasn't a lot that needs to change. Yes, you need to change your skill sets, but personality, I think, personality, hey, just keep it. Keep fun. Keep vibrant. Keep enjoying it. Keep looking for the fun in it. Because that's what I was as a youth pastor. And I think it's trying to keep those two and not throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak.
Totally.
It's been super.
I reckon it's so important because I know when we took on, we stepped into our role during a not easy transition, and I just really felt the church needed to laugh a bit at the same time, and that's what you could bring as a younger guy. But there's no doubt you've got to carry a different mantle, and it's funny, everyone's got an opinion, and you walk in the foyer and you're going to get those 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 people that just want to tell you what they think. And the problem is you're bouncing from opinion to opinion. And there's no doubt there's growth that needs to happen in the gift when you step into the role. But at the same time, you've got to think, well, what's the platform I want? What's the church look like when I stand on that platform in 10 years? We want to have a church that knows how to laugh. We want to have a church that is family. We want a church where you can be a bit cheeky. At the same time, you want to be able to have important moments, and you want to be able to preach the word, and you want to be able to shift atmosphere where you go. But I find if you stick to your guns of who you are while growing into who God's making you to be, the church actually learned to love who you are and the individual personalities. And I look at Sian's my wife, and we've all got probably, I don't know, I've never met Gula, your wife, but I know for James and Dusty, our wives are probably somewhat similar in that they're not looking necessarily for a platform moment. They're different. Sian's, my wife's a different personality to me, but I watch church love her personality and her style. They love my personality and my style. The church want us to be who we are. Yeah. So we've got to hold to that, and we've got to still stick to that while growing to be the leader God's called us to be.
Love that, man.
I think that just on that, for any young leader, just back yourself. If they really didn't like you, they wouldn't come to your church. No one's holding a gun to their head to come to your church. So start with the assumption that everyone likes you. That's why they're there.
Right.
So the couple who don't will let you know in the foyer. That's right. But the problem's with them, not you.
Or just before you preach, those people just before you preach. Oh, just before you get up there, I just want to let you know. You're like, oh, God bless you.
Yeah.
Hey, so on that topic, disappointments. Unfortunately, there are disappointments in life, but they're disappointments in ministry. How have you guys navigated that? Because what I've found, actually, I'll put it to you this way. Let's put it this way. I'd love to write a book one day called Life After Sundays. Yeah, right. And actually speak about Pastors Mondays. Okay, because on Mondays we're journeying through different emotions and feelings. And I know for myself, when I first planted, I think one of the biggest tensions I had in myself was, and I think a lot of guys struggle with this, is that we think we get to these points where we think, I thought I would have been there by now. I thought I would have arrived at this point by now. I thought our church would have been here by now, because we're visionaries, right? And so I had to manage that internally. I thought I'd be here by now. And so Mondays were really difficult for me in the first couple of years of our church, because I'm like, man, I thought we would have had this by now. I thought I watched, everyone else's Instagram leading into church planning. I'm like, man, they were at this point by this time. And I had to navigate those frustrations, disappointments. And I want to ask that question for you guys, because we've all had it. How have you navigated? What do your Mondays look like as far as journeying through those emotions, and how have you navigated them, and what's been most beneficial? Jono, why don't you start?
Okay, I guess to me, there's probably two sides I've learned to journey with different disappointments. One's been more, I guess, pragmatic and practical, and the other's definitely a spiritual bent. So practically, I made sure I work Mondays. So before the senior pastor, I was a youth young adult pastor associate, had Mondays off, and you'd often spend lots of Mondays just licking your wounds from the day before, as you mentioned. But I just had this thought, I don't want to sit in my pity all day long on my day off, on my Sabbath or whatever. So I was like, I want to channel that emotional frustration into productivity. So the moment my wife and I took on the church, we are working Mondays. I just think it's good, and everyone has their own strategy, which is fine, but let's leverage Mondays to do all our debrief from Sundays, to plan for the following week. Let's follow all the people up that were new decisions, all those things. What I found was I have a staff meeting every Monday at 10 a.m. So by 10 a.m. Monday morning, I have to have my vision hat back on. I have to be talking about the future again. I have to be encouraging others again. So I had this tiny little window to feel sorry for myself after Sundays. And you know what it's done? It's completely alleviated what was once this bigger space in my life. So that's just one.
How good is that window, though? I mean, Sunday night, 9 till 11, you can just revel in that window.
Dustin and we have an almost weekly phone call on Sunday. In fact, it's usually me calling you, Dustin. I just want to point that out. But you do answer my calls. That's nice.
I do.
So that's just one practical thing. I've just found for myself to just navigate. I much prefer to take all my frustrations from a Sunday or disappointments where I'm at in that journey and go, well, let's now action these things. Like, it's Monday, let's get to work right now, and let's call who I've got to call, stop what we've got to stop, start something new, whatever it might be. But I guess the other side, the spiritual term of things, I find it's disappointments probably more than anything else is what brings me to my knees. And one of my mentors in my life said, if something brings you to your knees, meaning before God in prayer, it can't be all that bad. It's actually a good place to be. And so I've just practiced the idea. If I'm worried or overwhelmed or anxious about something, I find it's often just an unprayed prayer. And so to me, I'm trying to use when my emotions are triggered by certain disappointments, to me, that is a trigger for me to go to prayer. And so it's just a discipline and a habit that I just have every single morning of my life before I talk to anyone else. I get before God. And it's amazing, before I ask him for anything, I just find just recognizing that he's present and he's faithful and he's there, how quickly the disappointments shrink in the largeness of who God is. And I find when I relax on that, I'm not as disciplined, quickly my disappointments become bigger and louder and louder. And again, that isn't anything new. I'm sure you all got the same experience, but they're just probably two of the things that are helpful for me.
Huge, man. I love it. Dustin, what has been something that you've that's helped you to navigate the disappointments?
I feel like my first year leading has been a little bit different because I didn't have a long run up to set all my goals of this is what we're going to have done after the first 12 months. Yep. Like, I was going to be just having Bryson supporting the Springboks through the World Cup. That was really my 12-month goal. So Corey Turner, who runs Numa Church in Melbourne, we were kind of laughing because he took on Numa a few months before I took on Calvary.
Right.
And he was saying, I had like this, God spoke to me, and then I spoke to the board, and then I had 18 months and I set my goals. I'm like, I had like 18 minutes. Yeah. I probably feel like my experience has been a little bit different in that I didn't have these big goals straight away. It's been, my first 12 months really has been just problem solving. So it's been a bit different in that sense. We're probably more now moving into that space as a church. I certainly think you beat yourself up on Mondays. As a preacher, like every time you hop in the car and drive home, you're thinking, why did I say that line? And Rick Warren, I think it was Rick Warren said something helpful, where it's like every person who speaks in public should be given like a 10% grace buffer. Because if you say that many words in front of people on a regular basis, you're going to say something dumb regularly. So I probably...
I think mine's 25%.
Of Sundays. You beat yourself up on that. But then I always remind myself, the great thing about church is in 7 days we get to do it all again. We'll have another shot. And if I don't like it, I'm the leader. Do something about it. You kind of got to snap yourself out of self-pity and, all right, it's my job to change it. So
I love it. So good, man. Josh,
Yeah.
how do you manage that?
We've never had a bad Sunday.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I don't know what you guys are
what do you
talking
think of that? That's amazing.
We nail it.
Unbelievable.
The grass is always greener on the Greenwood side.
That's our...
That's a bumper sticker. You need to print the shirt.
Josh, you said you've never had a bad Sunday. Talk to me about Friday night.
All right. So, I'm maybe just a touch different, and it's cool actually to hear how everyone does it. I take Monday off, and here's why I do, but just because it works for me. My first at the beginning of ministry, I probably just messed it up a lot, and I would fixate, fascinate, and I'd make it horrible for Shans, my wife, my kids. I remember Shans telling me, like, we went through some tough stuff, family and all that gear, and they're telling me our first year of ministry was the worst year of her life.
Wow.
And going, all right, how can this be the case? So I've to be honest, and it's a grace I feel what God's given me, is to be able to throw it off. So on my nature is I'll notice all the little things, the piece of paper that's wrong, the CG word that doesn't go up at the right time, the misspelling, the things that no one notices, I notice, and they can get to me. So I've learned very quickly after Sunday to address those things with people and say, we're going to chat about it Tuesday, but you've got more wins than losses. Because the truth is, my personality will focus on the 10% that didn't work rather than 90% that did.
Wow.
So I address the 10%, but leave the person feeling, hey, but we had a win today. This was a good day. Because at the end of the day, when we look back, church is great. It's just those little things that we want to be better, or we're not there yet. We've got time. And for me, I make all of our team do a report on Sunday after. So we get out the problems, but it has to be focused on the good. Because to be honest, as a leader, I have no problem for me on Tuesday remembering the problems, and we're going to address them. But I actually need to get my mind fixed on all the good things, all the people stories, all the things that happen, because then we're constantly looking at church from the perspective of what we need to fix rather than what God's doing. And I'm just saying from my personality. Yep. So I intentionally, I will finish church, we'll do our reports, we'll send them in. We do verbal reports on Sunday and written reports by Sunday night. But the verbal is because we're forcing guys to look for the good, look for the good, look for the good, look for the good, because they're overwhelmingly more good than there is problems. Then we'll go home, we'll have lunch, whatever we do, or DNA. I'll just go spend a few minutes with God. I've got to get in a space where instead of telling God when I'm frustrated, just going, you're awesome. You're awesome, God. Look what you did today. Even for my own preaching, I'm looking at the things I wish I didn't say, but this many people got saved today. This is what you did, Holy Spirit. Just thanking him. And if in some ways, and look, for me, it's a mental thing, whether it's in my car or walking, I just have this personal deal with myself. Before I walk in the door, I've chucked it off and I'm good. And it kind of forces me on Sunday afternoon. We don't have Sunday night church. If I'm seeing people, but Monday especially, I'm good for my boys and good for Shans. So, I found by the time I get to Tuesday, because I've really focused on the good things, I'm going to deal with production. I'm going to chat to property. I'm going to chat to pastors. I'm going to have the conversations, but I've forced myself into a place of more good came out of today than the problems. Now let's address the problems. So our team's not coming scared because again, I can fixate on what you've got to improve. Now that CG guy, how can they not get it right? Like it's click the button. But the reality is they got 3 songs wrong and 1 song they messed up. All right, so by the time I get to production, we did good, but we're going to address it, but they've come with a solution. So for me, it's just different, but I need to not get to the problem. I need to get to the good because I won't forget my problem. I'll deal with my problem on Tuesday, but I need to spend Sunday afternoon and Monday in a place of, it's good. Now that rhythm works for me. It's just different. That's all.
Love it.
Yeah.
So good, man. I think it is. I think it's that, it's a letting our minds go to the right places first, isn't it? It's huge with that, making sure that we celebrate the wins. A lot of the stuff I think we think went wrong on Sundays in church, 99% of people didn't even notice. We think, oh man, it ruined it. It did this, but really they didn't even notice it. They were enjoying worship, loving the word. So it is really big. And I think even for us in our team, what we've made sure we do on a Monday, which we do have our staff devotion in the morning on Mondays at 9:00, and we actually just go around at the end of it and say, hey, what was your favorite part about Sunday? Everyone says their favorite part about Sunday, and it's amazing the dynamic shift. Yeah, we're going to address the issues, but we're going to celebrate, like we're all saying, celebrating, hey, this is so cool, and how good's that? And it changes the morale of the team. I think one of the other things we'll finish up with is actually in this season. Okay, so we're all leading churches during the weirdest time in the history, in our known history. For us personally, like this is the weirdest time. We had to literally shut the physical doors of our church, and now we're navigating uncharted territories. We are leading where no one else in previous generations has led before because they didn't experience this, unless maybe they led a church during World War II. But it's definitely different times. I want to ask this question of all this really quickly: is what do you think God's teaching you through this season? What do you think God's teaching you through this season? Dustin, I'm going to start with you, man.
Thanks. I was really hoping you'd start with someone else on this question. So, I appreciate you. I think to be more of an empathetic leader. I think, you mentioned before that there's stuff in Sunday services that we care about that most people just don't notice or don't care about. I think the same is true in church life. I think there's a lot of stuff that we obsess about that your average mum and dad or young adult or varsity student just not a big deal to them. So I've really been learning that, pastoral care is a big deal. And it sounds funny, but like we're trying this thing of like really caring for our people and people are really loving it. It's like this crazy church growth strategy I've got. So I think I'm learning really, we overcomplicate things, I think sometimes to impress ourselves or impress people around us. Whereas if we can ensure people are cared for, if we can ensure we're finding a clear delivery system where we can encourage people with God's word, and if we can make sure that we're handling and managing finances and resources well, it really is about that simple. Now, yes, there's complexity in all of that, but I think that's probably what I'm learning, and also learning to try to see church through the lens of the recipient more and more. Okay, what does it feel like if I was made redundant this week? What does it feel like if, my family atmosphere is not a healthy atmosphere and now we're all locked in for 3 weeks? So I guess trying to be more empathetic and stand in the shoes of the listener, congregation member more as a leader. That's probably the main thing. And just keeping morale high, like what we've just said. Every meeting we're starting with, hey, what's happening? What's good? Every meeting we're doing that.
Yeah.
Just to keep the wins in everyone's mind.
I love that, man. Empathy. I love that. Josh, what do you think God's teaching you and showing you through this season, man?
Well, we spend so much time personally trying to think, how do I grow the church? How do I grow people spiritually? How do I grow attendance? How do I grow finances? And then COVID happens. And now it's, how do I care for the church? How do I hear from the Holy Spirit for the church? How do I activate the church to community action? The focus shifts, and now we're at a place where we go, okay, wow, all right. Well, I've got to trust really God grows it. I've got to appreciate the bride and love it. I've learned how strong and flexible our team is and how resilient the church is, because if you told us this 6 months ago, we would have gone into 6 months of panic planning to try and meticulously get it perfect. We had
so true.
four flopping days, and the church is fine.
Yeah.
And people we're wondering, where will people go? Well, they'll come back. And more people will come, and we'll be stronger. And you see, I preached on Sunday. I think it's a bit of a reset. We're meeting in homes. We're caring about our community. Evangelism takes on a new form, and the church is praying. And the church is going to be okay. And if anything, I worry so much about the 4 syllables I stuttered over on a Sunday, and then we go through COVID-19, and it's going to be all right. It's going to make it. It's his, and it's a privilege to lead people. The part I'm looking forward to is standing next to people and hugging and worshiping. But I think when we go back, we're not going to be able to stand next to people and hug, but we'll be able to worship. But even that, we're going to appreciate so much. Like, I'm finished. We all have cultures where we push people to the front. And I believe in that. Right now, when we go back, we're going to have to spread out because social distancing, but we're going to just appreciate being in the same room. And there's all those leadership things that are good leadership church service practices. At the end of the day, we're going to pray and we're going to worship, and he's going to build it, and it's going to be okay. So it's just a bit of an ease with it all.
Yep. I love it, man. So good. Jono, what do you think you're learning out of this whole season, man? What do you think God's teaching you?
Dustin touched on it, I think, about the morale thing, and I'm learning, I guess, how vitally important our role as shepherds of our communities are in terms of giving encouragement and keeping morale up. Because I don't know about you guys, I'm very inexperienced with dealing with the global pandemic. So I actually don't have...
You're on your own there, Jono.
Yeah, well, I'm just being honest, being transparent.
Not relate.
I don't have any answers. So you know, like you guys, I've got a great team, great staff, and they're doing super well at what they're meant to do. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? And I realized a big part of our role is the giving of encouragement, keeping morale high. And so I think what God's super, I guess, impressed in my heart is the idea of courage. And I definitely haven't been someone that has thought much about that word in my life. I wouldn't usually think of myself as a courageous person. I don't know if I have ideas of what a courageous person looks like. But I was challenged by this, but right at the start of the season, and you guys will be familiar with the story in Acts where Peter and John were threatened to stop preaching. And, you know, they said, if you keep doing this, you're in trouble. And they went back to the church and they told them about this, and they prayed. And what they prayed, it struck me and challenged me to my core, because I was like, if I was in their position where I was being threatened and I was being told to shut up and all those things, my prayer would be either God smite my enemies or God rescue me. But their prayer was, God, would you give us boldness?
Wow.
And to me, that just struck me that their prayer wasn't about self-preservation or about rescuing or dealing with the enemy. Their prayer was about what God was doing in them. And what they prayed for was courage to face the day. And so I've been really challenged. What God's been teaching me through this time is to listen to what I'm praying. Am I praying, God, just get rid of this pandemic? And God, would you keep everyone safe? I pray for that and I believe for that. But at the same time, I'm like, God, would you give me courage and boldness? Would you give my church boldness for this? Like, we don't have a spirit of fear. Amen. Good preaching. So that's super challenged me just to change my prayer, be aware of what I'm praying. And be familiar with I think it was St. Francis. No, it was Augustine, I think. Here we go. Old church fathers. He prayed, he said, don't pray for a lighter load, pray for stronger shoulders.
Wow.
And that has just been super challenging to me during this time where I don't have all the answers and I actually don't know what to pray or what to ask for. And so I've just been going, well, God, would you give me boldness? Would you give me endurance? Would you give me courage? And I found that I've been praying for that. Funnily enough, courage is contagious. and that'll hashtag. And I find the more you that's what we're saying, speaking to people's morale, it's infectious towards other people in the same way I think fear and worry is infectious. I think so is courage. So yeah, that's been the big picture that God's been speaking to me about.
So good, man. So good. And I think even what you mentioned as well, Josh, and we've all kind of mentioned in different ways, is that God is, it seems like, like on those old school PCs where it was like Alt Control Delete and it reset the computer. Maybe I am showing my age, Jono, on that one. But I think it is, I think actually that's what God's doing with the church, to be honest with you. And I think he's resetting it to come back to what really matters, the values that are really important, and showing us as well that he's still building his church. Yeah. And I thought pastors is like a massive wake up. I know it is for me, where I'm like for us in our church in the last 5 weeks, we've seen 61 decisions for Christ online. And that's like, but dude, we're not in a building and we're not in a space, and we kind of thought like, what's going to happen? But the gospel's actually getting out there in a greater way and spreading. I think the net of the gospel has been flung wider because of online platforms. And I think what God is doing is just reminding us, hey, you just do what I asked you to do. Love people, preach the gospel, just keep doing that and watch what I'll do. And I think what we'll find is at the end of this season, we'll come back, and I think our churches are going to be full of people that go, oh yeah, I actually came to Christ on that service.
Wow.
And they're going to come flooding in because, like the beginning of Colossians says, this message has spread as you've heard and understood God's grace and its truth. It's just spreading. And I think God's just revealing to the church that, hey, I built this. So stop stressing so much. Stop worrying so much. Like, just enjoy. Like, even for me, I'm going to enjoy time with my kids and enjoy having the day that's chill. Like, even on Sundays, I'm online with the church and we're doing that. But in between service, man, I'm going bike riding and going surfing and, and I think he's getting everyone just to chill. I build my church. You're going to labor. There's going to be hard times, but just chill. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. So I think as we finish up, boys, I think it's been really good just to kind of chat with you all and really encouraging, to hear what's happening in your world. And I think we'll definitely have some more opportunities like this again. But want to just for all the guys out there who are watching this, or maybe you stumble across this, you're a young pastor, young leader. We just want to encourage you that we've all got our struggles. We've all got our things that we face, but God has given us a grace. God's given us the strength to do what he's called us to do. Thank you, Jesus. Mm-hmm. And that you're not alone in this, and even hopefully to inspire you that, hey, yeah, we've got struggles as a leader, but we're still smiling, we're still here, and we're grateful for the call that he placed on our lives. So, hey, if you like this video, share it with some people, and stay tuned for some more stuff to come. Thanks for joining us, boys.